Coming up on this week's edition of Sunday Nation, Governor Whitmer's re-election, the expectations from Black Michigan. We're going to talk to two Detroiters, Edna Austin and Zinga Masani Manuel, who are going to share with us their expectations of this new governor. We also have Emmy Award-winning television producer and veteran of the Detroit media, Tony Matley, also here about Governor Whitmer and the new administration. Godfrey Dillard, prominent and civil rights lawyer, will talk to us about the state of affirmative action before the U.S. Supreme Court. But we begin with my conversation with the newly elected member of the 13th Congressional District. Shri Thanedar is here for the interview. His first ever sit-down interview with me. All coming up on this week's edition of Sunday Nation. Stay with us. He's going to be the new congressman representing Detroit in Washington, D.C. for the 13th Congressional District. Congressman-elect Shri Thanedar, thank you for being here.
Bankole, thanks for having me.
I want to begin right away. In January 2023, you'll be sworn in as the next congressman from Detroit, representing the 13th District, as well as other surrounding communities. I mean, how prepared are you for this task?
I'm very prepared. My lifetime of experiences, I grew up in poverty, dire poverty, home that had no running water. My father lost his job, 6 sisters, a brother. I worked as a janitor, got education. I came to United States as an immigrant to lift my family out of poverty. I have been a business person. I've ran small businesses. I got education. I'm a scientist. I have a PhD in chemistry. I have taught undergraduates. And then running a small business, I created value. I invented. I'm an inventor. I have patents. I have invented scientific technology. I've hired people, trained people, put together teams. And then after recently, I ran for governor. I did not succeed, but I ran as a state rep and won that state rep race in a 90% African American district, and served on the appropriations, worked on the budgets. So I have 2 years of legislative experience, just like my next job.
So, but the question is, though, you only have 2 years. Is that more than enough to represent Detroit in Congress?
Absolutely. It's plus the lifetime of experiences of knowing the stigma of poverty, knowing the stigma of mental health. The mother of my children, when they were 4 years and 8 years old, 2 boys, their mother passed away due to mental health issues. And so I understand firsthand what mental health issues in a family does to a family. So I understand the stigma of mental health. I understand the stigma of poverty. I understand how to run businesses. I understand how to be a legislator.
So how are you going to translate this? You've only been a legislator for 2 years as a state rep. How are you going to translate what you just outlined here into legislation in Congress?
Well, basically, my number one job is to help improve the quality of life for people. Now, from my own experience, I know education helped me overcome poverty. Right. And the quality of education, if you look at the low-income areas, if you look at the black and brown areas, the school system is notoriously not on par with the rich suburbs, right?
And I understand the divide, but when people look at your election, they'll say you're here because you spent $5 million. I mean, your critics will say, well, you basically bought the race, $5 million. You outspent every opponent in that race.
Not true. Not true. My opponent, Adam Ollier, a senator,
But he was not only your opponent. There were several other candidates in the race.
True. It was a 9-way race. You're right.
Yeah.
But Adam Ollier had the most money in that race. It's something that's not talked about. Nobody really knows. Talks about it. But a right-wing external third-party dark money put in $4 million to support him and oppose me. So another dark money group put in $2.5 million. He raised $1 million of his own. So Adam Ollier had $7.5 million against me. So he actually was the one who spent the most money in that race.
Let me ask you this, and it's a question that has come up, and I want you to clear the air before I go into some of the things that you plan to do in Washington to represent Detroit. Were there any candidates in the race for Congress that were, somehow supported by you or paid by you of some sort?
Absolutely not. Zero.
So you didn't
Why
pay,
would I do that? No,
I'm just asking. It's a fair, question. Did you pay anybody to be in the race?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know some of the people,
right?
Because they are in the community,
right?
But absolutely not.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though. So you ran for governor. You spent $10 million. You did not win. For Congress, $5 million. So that's almost $50 million of political investment to arrive at this point as a member of Congress.
Look, the problem is the evil is the money in politics. Okay?
Right.
Recently, the Georgia Senate race.
Right.
$174 million spent for one race.
Right.
One Senate race.
Right.
Elissa Slotkin's race. I believe that's going to be one of the most expensive congressional race. That would have spent a lot more money, 25 million. Governor had 30 million. So look, the money gets spent. Is that the right thing? Not, absolutely not. I spend my own money.
But you have the money. You're a millionaire. You self-fund yourself. So it's easy for you to say, well, I can self-fund myself. Yeah,
but my opponent, the money that was spent on his behalf, $1 million came from the CEO or owner of Home Depot.
You mean Adam Ollier?
Adam Ollier.
Let me ask you, did you work with Adam Ollier before, when he was when you were in the legislature?
He served in the Senate. I was in the State House. So yes, but look.
You were friends.
No, I'm professionally. I know him.
Right.
So he spent $7.5 million.
Right.
Some of that money actually came from Republican billionaires.
So let me advance the debate for you, though. Let me advance this because so you're going to be in Washington. You're going to be the next congressman from Detroit. Before you got in the race, there was a lot of talk, and I want to clear this air with you as well, get you on the record on this. I know a lot of people won't ask you this because now you're the congressman, but there's still a buyer's remorse that this position that you occupy should have been occupied by an African American, should have been a black person to represent Detroit and the surrounding communities, because by virtue of you being the new member of Congress from the 13th district, you've basically denied Michigan representation in terms of having an African American in the congressional delegation. Are you concerned about that? Does that bother you? Or for you, look, it's democracy. You ran and you won. It doesn't matter. Does it matter to you?
No. It is. I totally agree with the sentiment.
Right.
There should be proper representation.
Right.
But
you being the congressman denies the representation.
The issue is not about this one seat.
Right.
If there are 13% African Americans in the nation,
right.
then I would like to see 13% of congressional seats,
right.
13% of Senate seats, right. 13% of Supreme Court.
But you ran in a seat. But you ran for this particular seat. This was the seat that would have given Michigan representation in Congress as far as African Americans are concerned. You ran for this seat and you won, and now there is no representation.
Look. Ultimately, the people of the district decide. It's not the political pundits. It's not the media. Really, who decides is the people in their ballot.
But our job here in the press, in my role here is to ask you questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there is a lot of talk about this. But
but don't you think it matters, though? For the first time in more than 70 years, Detroit will not have an African American member of Congress. You don't think that is significant to be talked about?
You know what matters is? What matters is that the people of this district, this is the most diverse district, and the people of this district choose the person they want to be represented, and that person serves without their allegiance to the donors.
But you would not have been elected without Detroit. I mean, Detroit vote is significant here.
Look, I won the city of Detroit. When I ran for governor's race, in the primary, I won the city of Detroit. When I ran for state house in a 90% African American district.
Is it because you had more more economic investment? You had more money?
No, we just talked that my opponent Adam Hollier spent $7.5 million.
Adam Hollier did not run for governor. You're saying when you ran for governor, you won Detroit. I said, is it because you spent more money?
Not true. Governor Whitmer had a lot more money than me. The other candidate has as much money as, I use my money. They used third-party money, corporate money, corporate CEO money.
So let's talk about your legislative priorities in Washington, D.C. You're going to be in Washington in January. Let's talk about your legislative priorities. What are the top 3 priorities you're going to do for your district, the 13th Congressional District?
Well, number one, education. We got to improve the quality of education. We got to give better education to our children so they can have future. Secondly, the wealth gap, the rich and the poor. We need to close that wealth gap, and we can only close that.
How do we do it? By taxing the rich?
No, we not only we need to fair taxation, we need a graduated taxation. So
but do you believe in taxing the rich, millionaires like yourself?
Absolutely, yes. They should pay their fair share of taxes. But it's not just the tax issue. We need to create opportunities. We need to have home ownership. Look in the black bottoms. Billions of dollars of black wealth was destroyed. Black net worth was destroyed. We need to create that opportunity. See, I came with nothing.
What's your take on the $600 million overtaxation of Detroit homeowners? Is that an issue you will take on?
Absolutely. It's absolutely. It is totally unfair that much money was overcharged to them, and because of that, many people lost their homes to foreclosures.
Have you spoken with Mayor Duggan about this?
Yes, I have.
And what did he say?
He talked to me about the legal issues that legally people don't have the right anymore as the laws stand now. But if that's the case, we got to change those laws.
Is this an issue you're going to bring up in Congress?
Yes, I will. Reparations is important. Fairness is important. That $600 million of overcharging of property taxes to the Detroit residents destroyed many families, destroyed net worth of many families. People lost their homes to foreclosure. There is a lot of damage was done, and we need to address that. And we can't hide behind legal loopholes. But those people are hurting, and it's not fair. And look, I don't take corporate money. I don't take lobbyist money. So I'm not beholden to anyone. So I have the independence to go fight for this. And that's what I'll do. And that's why people elected me.
What else? The overtaxation issue, you're going to bring it up in Congress. What else do you plan?
Health care.
Okay.
I support single-payer healthcare system. COVID exposed the
That was the long-term position of the late Congressman John Conyers.
There's a lot that I agree with the legendary John Conyers. He's my hero. But, in terms of healthcare, no family, no person should feel that they'll go bankrupt if they have a healthcare emergency. And we got to make sure 26 million people still today are without healthcare. We are the only developed nation that does not provide health care to its citizens.
Detroit is one of the highest concentrations of poverty in the nation.
Yes.
Specifically, what are you going to do to address the question of income inequality in the city of Detroit, in your district, in the 13th Congressional District?
20 to 30% of people are at poverty level or below. And I understand the stigma of poverty at first hand. Look, we got to create economic opportunities. We got to bring entrepreneurship. Now, obviously, the minimum wage needs to be raised. And I'm for
to how much?
$15 is what I fought for. But today's environment, $15 is not a living wage.
$15 doesn't move any needle.
It doesn't move the needle. We got to go maybe $20, $22. One job, 40 hours a week, should be able to get enough living wage to raise a family. People are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and that's not how it should work. So we got to focus on creating economic equity. And to do that, entrepreneurship, home ownership, teaching people to start their own businesses, creating seed capital.
Right.
You know, that's really how we're going to create generations of wealth. You know, Detroit, notorious. We have people living in generations of poverty as a result of systemic racism.
So quickly before we end this interview, give me a timeline here when you think you're going to you plan to see things change as far as your campaign, the campaign promises that you're making. You know, what time do you have a timeline when we can begin to see some of these things in action?
I would be fighting for all of these issues.
Right.
You know, I'm not the president of the United States. I am one member in a Congress.
But your vote is important.
But my vote is important. I will introduce bills. As we speak, I'm introducing a bill for economic equity in the Michigan House as a state rep. I would continue to introduce bills that are going to help Detroit, but whether we are in a majority or minority in the United States House matters. Do we have control of the Senate matters for us to be able to pass bills and get things done. But I will be fighting for Detroit and downriver every day.
Thank you so much, Congressman-elect Shri Thanedar, for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Nation.